The Los Angeles Dodgers are in a 3-2 hole to the Blue Jays. Can they rally for back-to-back championships, or does Toronto win their first World Series in a generation? Let's talk about it.
When that final out is made, you know it's time for Locked On MLB Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On MLB Game Night. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to MLB Game Night, where we cover every single game, every single night, as only the Locked On Podcast Network can do it. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, host of the Locked On Braves postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. Handsome fella in the Expos hat there representing the country of Canada, Steve Lennox, host of the Locked On Red Sox postcast. Catch him on the X at Lennox on Baseball. And if you're at Quinnipiac, catch him in person tonight. We're going to get to Toronto being up 3-2 in this series. We're going to get to some of LA's problems and if they can overcome them. And we're going to make predictions for tomorrow and for Game 6. Before we do that, Steve, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. Okay, I want to start off with the Blue Jays because they have the series lead. They are up 3-2 as they head home to Toronto, to Rogers Center for either one or two games. Before we get into the micro level of what Toronto is doing well and how they're overcoming adversity, did you see this coming? Because I know that you were the one of us who picked Toronto, but did you think that outside of, a couple innings in that 18-inning just marathon, that outside of that, Toronto would essentially dominate the entire series in Chavez Ravine?
I felt like after they went 18 and then tied the series up at 2-2 that they were playing with house money because you had one more. What Yesavage did to help the Blue Jays go up 3-2, I can't see many people saying they saw that coming. I think all of us, I was wishful thinking, but I'm steadfast in the Blue Jays. I don't move now that they're up 3-2, but I really didn't think they were going to go home up 3-2 and win games 4 and 5 in Los Angeles. They won game 4, again, house money. They win game 5, and they do so almost, they got leads and then they just added on. I really did think they would go home down 3-2 in the series and win. It was, hey, you got to win the final 2 at home. Now they've got 2 opportunities to close this things out. I would like to see them do it in 6, but they have a tall task that we'll get into in Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Yeah. And the thing that's wild to me, you mentioned Trey Yesavage. I want to kind of focus on him for just a second. I know we're really supposed to be looking ahead here, but I want to point out he started the season with the Dunedin Blue Jays taking on the Jupiter Hammerheads in single A. And he's now pitched in the World Series and pitched wonderfully. And it's funny because that first outing of his, Steve, 3 2/3 innings, 2 runs on 1 hit, 4 strikeouts, 6 walks. And it feels like he's not allowed that many walks in the entire postseason to this point. He's allowed 3 in 11 World Series innings compared to 6 in that first start. Can you remember, a rookie pitcher, or I guess a rookie in general, that's been this impactful in the World Series as Trey Yesavage? And did you think anybody was going to beat Cam Schlitter's playoff start that we saw earlier this postseason?
No on Cam, because I don't know anyone that saw that really coming against the Red Sox in that decisive game 3 in the wild card round. I think we went to Josh Beckett in terms of young pitchers and doing it against the Yankees in the Bronx all those years ago, 20 plus years ago now for the Marlins. But what he's done, and how about a great night across the board for East Carolina and college baseball, the Pirates, as Yesavage goes the first 7. And then Hoffman with that, I mean, every fastball he threw was 95. I was looking at the velocity, 95, 95. That had to be 95. Another former Pirate as well. Just a great night overall for the pitching staff. I mean, John Snyder is pulling, everyone went, oh, he blew the 18-inning game. I mean, that game was just insane. I mean, credit to JD and John for doing MLB game night after game 3.
True.
But Yesavage just I was really tuned in again to Smoltz because, I mean, Smoltz was saying this is what he's got to do. This is what he's doing. And then every inning that he just kept going out there. I mean, the look that he had on his face was like, I don't know what just happened, but I just gave up a 9 spot. But he didn't. He just kept, Freddie Freeman strikeout, and just different innings that he just continued to mow him down, stayed within himself, and a great game plan, and he executed it. So, Beckett, young guys like that, few and far between. I mean, they went back to Don Newcomb, 1949 as a rookie.
Yeah.
I'll go for that. I love the Brooklyn Dodgers history. But wow, I mean, just what he was able to do. And, social media, just to wrap up real quick, Lindsay, social media last night, many, many people reminding us that this guy is still eligible to be AL Rookie of the Year in 2026. Yeah.
Yeah. If we're talking about rookies in the World Series, it's a position player, but I'd be remiss to not mention 19-year-old Andrew Jones hitting 2 home runs in game 1 against the New York Yankees. He finished that series, I think, 8 for 20 with 6 RBI, but the 2 home runs came in his first 2 at-bats of game 1. So, okay. I think the thing that I've been most impressed about with Toronto, sticking with them in this segment here, has been how they've just been able to get over whatever happens and go to the next thing, right? They lose George Springer to an oblique injury. That's fine. Now they keep Bo Bichette in the DH spot. They don't have to play him in the field, and they just plug somebody else into the lineup in the outfield and just keep going. And I don't necessarily know if I expected Toronto to be able to look as good as they did without George Springer. Like, it makes sense that if you lose, an Addison Barger or, one of the lower level guys, that they could just kind of recover and move on. But they lost arguably one of their 2 or 3 best players in George Springer and just kind of ignored it like nothing happened and just kept on going. And I think that's probably the biggest shock for me, has been what they were able to do without him.
But to their credit, I mean, underachieving in so many different ways in 2024 because of injuries. And the guys that we're talking about, the Bargers, the Clements, all the different guys in their lineup that produce in their own way. They don't try to do too much. They just stay within themselves. These guys finally realized and finally played, I mean, again, you're not dealing with top prospects here. You're not, I mean, Yesavage is a top prospect. And those who, pay attention to Blue Jays prospects knew who he was. But some of these other guys, like, you don't want to call them journeymen or anything like that, but they understand where they're at. And the moment hasn't been too big. And they, part of 2024 was who's stepping up when we have these injuries. I mean, the biggest questions last year were, do you trade Bichette and do you trade Vlad during the offseason? They didn't. And they were able to re-sign one and extend Vladdy Guerrero. And I think that just had huge implications for this team over the course of the year. Now, Bo Bichette could leave, but they could be in the market. I mean, remember, they were in the market for Shohei Ohtani. It's just a matter of somebody taking their money, just like the Giants. They want to compete, and win this World Series. And they're certainly, AL East is up for grabs the next couple of years, but they're right there. But the way in 2024 that they did not meet expectations, I think has helped them here exceed expectations, meet and then exceed expectations in 2025. That's why I've loved them all season long. I really have. I mean, they're just doing it. Gosman, Bassett, I've loved those guys, and I would have loved to have seen them traded last year. They weren't. They stayed with them.
It really feels like, to your point, that they're playing very loose and free. And I think I remember reading an interview with one of these guys, maybe after one of these games, that it's the most, I think he said, easygoing clubhouse he's been in. Like, nobody gets too high, nobody gets too low. They're just riding through, the currents, riding the wake, and they're just continuing to do what they do. And I think that's been most impressive, because you could see, and granted, we're going to get to the Dodgers in a minute and some of their struggles, but you've seen situations in the past where teams have gone up against a juggernaut, like people were calling the Dodgers, and they've gotten tight, and they're trying to do too much, and they'll bounce a throw to second, or you'll see a wild pitch. And instead, we're seeing that on LA's side. We saw 3 wild pitches in 1 inning. We saw, Mookie Betts shorten throws to first base and letting guys get on. And it just feels like Toronto has a quiet confidence that is, for people who haven't watched a ton of American League East baseball, a lot of that played the same time my Braves do. Obviously, you see it, a lot of it. It just feels like they're playing with an earned confidence of, like, we know we're good enough to be champions, and we just have to get through this final team to do it. That's been the biggest macro level takeaway for me in this World Series.
And even with Bichette with the knee injury, he's played the other side of the bag. He's a step down defensively. They have been outstanding defensively, not only in this World Series, but really throughout the postseason. Yeah.
They just haven't really had anybody who's a net negative on defense. Like, other than Bichette being a struggle at shortstop, and right now with Jimenez at short and Bichette at second or DH, that's mitigated. They're just consistently good top to bottom on defense, and that's an underrated. I feel like it's something we lose a little bit in modern baseball. You talk about pitching, you talk about hitting. Defense does matter, and we're seeing that here. All right, in just a minute, I want to shift over to LA. I want to talk about where the Dodgers are, what they need to fix, what they've tried to fix, and their prospects going forward. We'll do that next, right here on MLB Game Night. Major League Baseball has 1 or 2 games left, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Because listen, the Dodgers are favored to win on Friday. Yoshinobu Yamamoto on the mound, -1.5 over Kevin Gausman and the Toronto Blue Jays. But because they're up 3-2 and they're heading home, the Toronto Blue Jays are the favorite to actually win the World Series at -240 to LA's +194. Even when it's not your teams, it's a fantastic series, and FanDuel keeps every moment exciting. So right now, FanDuel's offering new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to MLB Game Night. Lindsey Crosby, Steve Lennox. I want to talk about LA because the big story, obviously, here, everybody's been pointing to the bullpen has been the issue for Los Angeles. And certainly it's had its moments. We've seen multiple games now where crooked numbers have come on the board in the 7th when the starter leaves. But it feels like that is something you can work around to a certain extent. And I don't just mean by having Yamamoto throw a complete game. I mean by scoring enough runs where the bullpen slip up doesn't really harm you. But LA's offense is going through it right now. And the stat I have for you, I think it's the most surprising stat of the season for me right now, or of the series. Since beating the Reds in the wild card, the Dodgers are hitting .214 with a .666 OPS in the 3 series that they've played since. They were second in the regular season in runs scored, and now they're barely hitting half these guys' weight. Can LA figure this out in enough time to not get eliminated, like to not lose the World Series to Toronto?
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, it's collective. It's not, it's not just a couple of hitters. It's not just Andy Pages. It wasn't in the lineup in Game 5. This is sorry about that. This is concerning.
Yeah.
And Gosman's not a guy that you just break out of a slump against in Game 6 Friday night. I mean, he can torture you a little bit. He can play around. And you think, okay, let the rookie follow the game plan from the veteran. Instead, it's let the veteran follow the game plan. I mean, they're very similar pitchers. Gosman's got a little bit more of a repertoire in terms of the number of pitches he throws, but fastball split. And he, last Saturday, he went into the 7th inning, and that's what I was hoping for. It just didn't work out in that 7th inning against Yamamoto and the Dodgers. But I mean, both these guys tomorrow night, they both can go extended innings, meaning 6 or 7, or it could be into the bullpens. But whose bullpen do you trust more right now? I mean, they're both somewhat rested, even though they went 18 innings. But again, I would give right now the everything except, and it's a minimal advantage for the Dodgers with the starting pitchers for Saturday because they're going to the bullpen eventually. I don't see him going into the 8th and 9th inning. I think the Blue Jays seeing him for a second time will establish a little bit more and understand they love to attack early. So if they can get to him early a little bit more than they did prior timeout, I think they have success.
Yeah. And even when it comes to Yamamoto, it's maybe not even necessarily getting runs on him early, just getting pitches on him. He finished that game 2 complete game barely over 100 pitches, whereas the first game, like game 1 against Blake Snell, I think they made him throw like 23 or 25 in the very first inning.
Snell was 29. I think Yamamoto
29.
was 23 or 24 in that start. And then after that, it was, up
Cruising
and down, just cruised. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with LA's offense, to your point, it is just about everybody, but I have an amazing stat that I love sharing these fun stats here. Amazing stat. If you look at postseason OPS, minimum 50 plate appearances, Andy Pages has the worst postseason on record offensively. He has a 215 OPS in 54 plate appearances. Number 2 on this list, Jason Hayward, 2016 with a 307, and he gave that great speech in the clubhouse, which helped. Number 3, Martin Maldonado in 2021. They lost that World Series. The Astros did to the Braves. But just you see why they took him out of the lineup. They put Kike Hernandez in center for game 5. You have to assume something like that's on the way for game 6. But at this point, I don't really feel like there's much you can do as far as personnel changes other than maybe just that. These guys just have to start hitting. Max Muncy has to hit. Tommy Edman has to hit. Freddie Freeman has to hit. Mookie Betts, they dropped him to third, try to take some pressure off, and it didn't really happen. And when you watch Mookie, it really looks like he's started like trying to swing out of his shoes to just connect with one on like a pull side homer. It's like they've had 5 games where it's just a terrible 5-game stretch. They have an OPS of 651. But if you go back and you look in the regular season, they have 22 different 5-game spans in the regular season where they did this. I kind of feel like a lot of the analysis of the postseason is like whoever won the most recent game is going to win the World Series. I think the big story here is LA's Dolphins is just cold. And because it's cold, they can't overcome the bullpen deficiency that they have where they can, hopefully win. And I just don't know if they fixed it at this point.
I think one of their, they have 8 or 9 home runs. Every home run except one has been a solo shot. They don't string together hits the way the Blue Jays do. I mean, Vladdy had the home run a couple of games ago that, put them in front for good. I mean, they're down 2-0, one swing of the bat. Freeman's home run to win it in 18, a solo shot. I mean, Hernandez, the home run against Yesavage, solo shot. He rebounded nicely. Again, Pages, hey, we love sports, and Pages doing something positive in game 6 or game 7. That's a storyline because of how bad he's been throughout this postseason. I just don't see it happen, especially, and they had to sit him. But again, we said it last weekend. Who's behind him? Alex Call. It's not really, there's not platoons here. There's not different things where, guys, the Blue Jays are comfortable in their roles.
Yeah.
They know their roles. The Dodgers are filled with superstars, and they're not coming. Pages, I don't see it happening. If it's going to happen, you've mentioned all the hitters. It's going to happen at the top of the lineup, whether it's Ohtani, Smith, Betts, Freeman. It's going to be with those 4. Maybe you throw Teoscar and Kike in there as well.
Well, and Teoscar is the guy that both giveth and taketh away. You saw the Dalton Varsho fly ball that became a triple because he laid out for it and missed it. And just another little area where,
and they got him in too.
Yeah. Then they cashed that in. And that's something where the defense of the Dodgers came back to bite them and directly put a run on the board. Whereas Toronto even not having George Springer out there and having to put somebody else out there, I think we both kind of feel that, like, if that ball was hit to Toronto's right fielder, they probably either make that play or cut it off and hold him to a single. And
Yes.
it's just, that's the little things like that. When you have a short series like this, all those little things add up, especially when
100%.
you're not doing the big things, which is getting your stars to play like stars. When the big things aren't happening, that's what happens. All right, in just a minute, I want to talk about Game 3, okay? Specifically Yamamoto versus Gausman, but I also want us to kind of talk about what has to happen for LA to win, what has to happen for Toronto to win. We'll do that next, right here on MLB Game Night. This episode's brought to you by PrizePicks. Listen, you and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. Because if you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The new Stacks feature is honestly a game changer. You can pick more on a single player's, on every option for that player. Steph Curry's points, 3-pointers, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot will save your lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Final segment of MLB Game Night. Lindsey Crosby, Steve Lennox. Okay, so tonight, Yamamoto versus Gausman. Well, I want to take them one at a time. Can Yamamoto, and you kind of already touched on this a little bit. Can Yamamoto repeat what he did in Game 2? Because we haven't seen 3 consecutive complete games in the postseason since Roger Clemens. Can Yamamoto do it again? Or have the Blue Jays seen enough of him to figure out how to get around both the exceptional stuff and the pinpoint control that he's shown so far this postseason?
I think they can get to him, but he's just got the ability to wiggle out of trouble. It's a matter of, on or off in 4. He gets 2 strikes on the batter. Is he throwing an extra couple of pitches to get a strikeout or to get a fly ball out? And if that all adds up, if it's 6 innings or less, which we don't think will happen. I mean, I see him going into the 7th, maybe into the 8th inning.
Right.
The longer he goes, the more advantageous it is to the Dodgers. But they've also got to be tied or within a run, up a run or down a run within striking distance. It's a lot of it does feel like it's on his shoulders, but Dave Roberts is going to ride him a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see 5th or 6th inning. He's got runners on base. He's their best option. Kershaw, the rest of the guys in the bullpen, he is their best option. He may still be their best option in the 8th inning, even though he'll be laboring at that point in the game, just because of the number of pitches he's thrown.
I was about to say, it feels like if you get him out of the game before the end of the 7th, that is a good thing for Toronto, simply because I don't think you can trust Sasaki to take 2 innings to take the 8th and the 9th, right? You have to use somebody else out of the pen, and that's your big thing. And we've seen the 7th inning be really big for Toronto in this series. They've had a couple different innings or a couple different times where the 7th inning, they put up a crooked number on the scoreboard and ended up putting the game away. Flip for Gausman. When we previewed that Game 2, I think you and I both talked about, it kind of felt like whoever was going to make the first mistake, right? Was Gausman going to make the mistake? Was Yamamoto going to make the mistake? And it was Gausman. He gave up a couple solo shots late there. Can Kevin Gausman go blow for blow with Yamamoto, or can he keep it close enough where the bullpen can hold the deficit and give the offense a chance to come back? Yeah, that's where I really struggle. Is they had success against Gausman last time. They figured out how to get to him eventually.
Yeah.
When they see him again, do they do that quicker?
I could see both pitchers giving up a couple of runs early, but having Snyder having to stick with Gosman, and the same for Dave Roberts and Yamamoto. Again, those are your best options right now, even if they've given up a couple of runs. So if there are a couple of haymakers early where there's a couple of runs for both sides, you continue to stick with them, and then it goes inning by inning, batter by batter. But I've been enamored with Kevin Gosman for a few years now. I really think he's a terrific under the radar pitcher. That's hard to say because he's had success in his career, but everyone's seen him on a national stage. He's got terrific stuff. And if he can go out there tonight and match him, or Thursday night and match him, I think you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let him have a long leash, because I think he's deserving of it. Again, he gave up those runs in the 7th inning. Okay. And you pull them. But, I mean, the bullpens right now, Toronto's bullpen is in pretty good shape. Hoffman almost had to pitch in Game 5 just because he hasn't pitched a lot, and you want to keep him ready to go. But everybody that's going to be available in Game 6 is certainly going to be available in Game 7. I think with the Blue Jays, you want to go for the knockout, but you want to make sure those arms are as fresh as possible for Game 7 so you can deliver, Lauer, all the different guys that you have available to you. They're going to be needed even more in Game 7. And I think that's where we're going, Lindsay. I think we're going Game 7.
Yeah, outside of Hoffman and Dominguez, Anthony Dominguez, nobody else in the Toronto pen has pitched since Tuesday. And only 3 guys pitched on Tuesday. And so, it was, everybody got used on Monday, both sides in that Giant game. But, since then, they used 3 guys on Tuesday, 20 pitches apiece, and then 4 pitches to 1 guy, and then Hoffman and Dominguez, and that's it. So they do have the rest advantage there. Offensively, do we think George Springer is back? Because, and here's why I ask. I saw a news report from before Game 5, and he was doing some running drills.
Right.
Issue wasn't running lower body. It was an oblique. They did not announce the results of the MRI. They've not replaced him on the roster, but we didn't see him swinging a bat. It feels like if you have an oblique issue, you're not going to be able to get back to swinging a bat by Game 6, right?
The curious thing from Wednesday night was he had a helmet on at the end of the dugout. Bichette's at the plate, and the best thing for the Blue Jays there is Bichette was retired, but it looked like Springer was going to go into the game and pinch run. He had his helmet on. He was talking with Vlad Jr. He shook his head up and down. And he's, they said on the broadcast, the way it was right now, it wasn't going to get any better necessarily, and we know that. Right. But if he had gone into the game as a pinch runner, he wasn't going to do anything where he caused more damage, where he wasn't going to be available for Game 6 or Game 7. You won the last 2 games with him out. Is he Roy Hobbs in Game 7? So, somehow, some way of, hey, we're going to, he's a decoy right now for Game 6, but does he get a couple of bats in there? Now you're dealing with 2 potential guys, Bichette and Springer, who you might have to remove somehow, some way. Bichette is a singles hitter right now, and he's a very good singles hitter, but he's going station to station. The ball, I think on Tuesday night, he hit a laser to left field. It got out there in a hurry. It's a single, but he wasn't pushing it. He didn't round first hard and think, hey, I'm going for 2. No, it's station to station. You're going to have 2 guys in a lineup that could potentially be base to base. That's curious for me. But the fact that he had a helmet on to pinch run Wednesday night, there's something there. It might have been just a complete decoy. Who knows? But they're keeping it tight to the vest, and he's still available.
Yeah, it's. I guess you're in a situation of who else do you go to? There's if you
Mr. Heineman
is 75% of George Springer better than whoever you would replace him on the roster with, Jonathan Clace or something? I don't. Yeah. It feels like he's probably just there to that. I guess you do have Joey Loperfido, who you could maybe go to, but it feels.
Yeah, he's off though. I believe he'd have to be added. Yeah,
he'd have to be added for Springer. Santander's out and can't come back, but Loperfido could be activated and put on the roster. But to your point, they're acting like they're going to use him a little bit. Okay, predictions. You are kind of already said it. You expect us to go to a Game 7. Do you still have Toronto winning the whole thing?
Yeah, I have to stick with the Blue Jays. They're in the driver's seat right now. They're going home. I would not be surprised if they won this in 6, and that would be the bats not waking up for the Dodgers. But it's wishful thinking more than anything on my part. I want to see this go 7. It's been a great 6 games, going to be a great postseason. I've said these things time and time again, but I think Yamamoto could be the difference maker, slightly over Gausman, because I'm a huge fan. But the Dodgers even it up, and then it's all hands on deck for Game 7 Saturday, and I'm signed up for it. I've been signed up for that for a while, and I'll stick to it.
When the postseason started, I had the Dodgers winning the whole thing. When the World Series started, I had Dodgers in 6. It feels wrong to come off of that and to change, but at the same time, it kind of feels like Toronto's offense is just so much better than LA's offense right now.
They're clicking.
They're clicking. LA's is definitely not. And unless multiple guys just figure it out kind of suddenly and in a hurry, feels like Toronto's going to win this whole thing. I'm with you, though. I do think it goes 7, which is great for us because we have game night for Game 6 on Friday and game night for Game 7 on Saturday. So selfishly, I wanted to go 7 because that's fun. It's just fun baseball. But either way, I think we're in for a great game tomorrow. I agree with you. I do think Yamamoto outplays Gausman slightly, but I do think this goes 7, and I kind of do think Toronto does win the whole thing. So I guess I'm changing my pick at the very end, and I'm going to look like an idiot if LA comes back and wins this thing for not sticking with my original pick.
Hey, we've got T-shirts. You all thought I was the idiot when we did the show last week with Jeff. So we've got T-shirts made up. I'll send you one in the mail.
You were the only one of the entire game night hosting crew who picked Toronto to win, and you look like a genius. Who knows ball? Steve Lennox knows ball. That'll do it for our World Series final preview episode here. Do us a favor. Come back tomorrow night. Again, Steve and I going live immediately after the game ends to talk all about Game 6, see if we were right that Yamamoto outduels Gausman, see what happens with George Springer, if the Dodgers offense can wake up, what they do in center field and all of that. For Steve Lennox, I'm Lindsey Crosby. This has been MLB Game Night.